Gonna take a sentimental journey. Gonna set my heart at ease. Gonna make a sentimental journey to renew old memories. I got my bag, got my reservation, spent each dime I could afford. I'm like a child in wild anticipation. I long to hear that all aboard. That's the time we leave at 7. I'll be waiting up for heaven, counting every mile of railroad track that takes me back. Never thought my heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to run? I gotta take that sentimental journey. Sentimental journey home. Sentimental journey.
And my family have been here. My mom grew up here. Her family grew up in McAdenville. So we have, a long regime here with our family. So, and Ken did as well. And then Ken and I, although we lived up here and he lived over on the other part of town, we met here at what was called the Teenage Club. Did y'all know who ever came to that? Did you come? And so we met here when I was a junior in high school. Something like that. Yeah, a long time. And so we started dating and, eventually got married.
That's the best thing that ever come out of McAdenville. And when we first got married, we not only had an inside bathroom, we had an inside bathtub. And I thought, man, this is great. Get a beautiful wife and a toilet and a place to take a bath. I said, my goodness, who in the world could beat that? I just wish that our kids nowadays could experience that. I mean, it's memories that you can't go back and make, but it's memories that you can take with you. And we just had the best time in the world. I remember the ball team up at McAdenville School, and Babe and a lot of those other guys played around there, and that was the last year they did it. And we really had a good time, didn't we, Babe? But people would come out like everybody else. That's all you had to do was mostly the sports and the center here. So we spent a lot of time here. It's just amazing when you get it's just amazing. So we appreciate the time and all the things we got to see here.
We started playing ball in '54. We won the state championship.
Yeah.
And then we went to Pittsburgh to play in the World Series. We finally went back to Winterbank. We finally lost out. Well, the next year, this is in 55, we go to Cleveland, Ohio to play in the World Series. We got in the loser's bracket, won back to the big bracket. We're playing Louisville, Kentucky for the World Series. We had them 5-4. They had 2 outs. They had a man on third and second. And he hit the long pop fly out there. I'm catcher. I take my glove up. I knew. I'm not going to tell you who it was. Went out there like this and dropped the ball. They beat us 6-5. Mr. Rankin run the barber shop here. So I worked out there shining shoes when I was a kid. Then on Saturday, you shine shoes. I think I got 5 sets of pair. Anyway, I had to put the towels up because people come in and took showers. I'd clean the shower stall up, put the towels up, pick them up. I did that. I worked in the grocery store, but I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Tell us how the softball team got started. Yeah.
It was a mill. Each place in the mill had a team, and that's how it got started.
Yeah.
We'd play the second shift, the first shift, something like that. That's how we got started. Red Jenkins was the coach.
I can remember it was such a wonderful place as far as growing up, and the community. Everybody knew one another, and everybody was kin to one another. Miss Jane should make sure we had shoes to wear, and we just didn't have all of this fast food stuff, and that was the meeting place. And the Abernathys, they took care of people that didn't have money and helped a lot of people in the community. And I can remember Mr. Clifford coming by. He'd have produce and different things on his truck, and he'd make a run through the community, and I always enjoyed hearing his truck pull up in front of the house. And didn't have none of this stuff, and none of them social things, and
Yeah.
internet and computers. We had party line telephones. So you either listened to other people's talks, or they would talk with you, whoever you didn't have no idea. That was the most exciting time, is when we had party line telephones.
And you made an interesting point about how things have changed since social media has come around.
I'd rather have the party line
Yeah.
telephone.
What do I remember the most? If you've ever seen Mayberry, that's what it was like. Mr. Farr wanted everything that he could possibly have for us. Thus, the community center, which we love this place. It was just a perfect ideal place to grow up. And I was just so thankful that my children were able to enjoy the same era type. But I was just so thankful they got to experience the same life, that, so to speak, that I did. In the really early days, his dad, my grandfather, had an ice house. And then, ice boxes was the thing. So they delivered ice to houses, and put your little card up, and they delivered whatever ice. He began Barnhill Sanitation, which lasted until my brother's demise.
Well, McAdenville will always have a place in my heart. I was born in McAdenville. We lived over here out where the zoo used to be. It was called Pigtown. And that's where myself and my brother were born. And my mom and dad worked in the mill. And McAdenville just always really been close. I worked 53 years in the village restaurant. McAdenville is just a wonderful, wonderful town. Like I say, my mom and dad worked in the mill, and I never will forget, we had 2 ducks, and I named mine Quack, and I don't remember what my brother named his, but this is the truth. Now, where we lived, you had to go down a hill, and they were 3 houses. We were the middle house, and then 2 houses on our side. my mother worked on the second shift. Every night at 10 o'clock, my duck would go to the top of that hill and wait on her to get off and walk her back home. It was just like family working in the restaurant, really. When anybody would come in, we would know what they were going to order, and it was just family oriented. It's just wonderful. I wouldn't take anything for those memories.
My fondest memory is meeting Shirley at McAdenville Baptist Church.
Bringing her to McAdenville was probably the greatest thing I did. But so many fond memories. I was just sitting here a minute ago thinking about when it was about 7, I believe, or 8 of us boys would, in the summertime, would go swimming down at the old MD. And we were coming up through the woods one day, and Miss Farr was standing out back. And we walked up, and she got talking to us and telling us, you know, where have you boys been? And we said, we've been to the swimming hole. She said, well, have you had lunch? We no. She said, well, come on in, you need some cookies. And she brought us in to set us down and said, Aunt Eva said, give these boys some milk and cookies. Said they're hungry. And she did. But she always talked to us about being good and listening to our parents, doing the right thing, you know. She was teaching us. And so she told us, said, when you're out playing, come by. And all summer, about every 2 weeks, we'd come by and visit with Miss Farr and get our milk and cookies. And she would always talk to us. She's such a precious lady. I got so many fond memories of her, it's not even real.
But it was fun knowing her, and like I said, I was delivering papers here of the 12-year-old kid, and when I went to work, you went to work for family. You didn't go work for a company, you wanted to work for a family.
That's right.
And I stayed 48 years of it. And other than Joe Rankin, I think probably we're the only two that was born here still live here. I don't know of any other. Maybe, I don't know.
Daniel's still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel. Yeah,
Daniel's
yeah.
still here.
That's what I say. I
Yeah.
didn't think about Daniel, but you're right.
I was kind of lonely. I was outside playing, and this little girl came down the street, and her name was Nancy, Steve's niece, Nancy Cobb. And she was with her grandmother, Steve's mom, up the road. Nancy comes down there and she said, hey, my name's Nancy, what's yours? And we have been lifelong friends. I mean, she beat me in a beauty contest. Miss McAdenville, she won, you know. That didn't bother me. That was another great memory. All the girls in McAdenville were in the beauty contest. And it was such fun. Things were so different then. But McAdenville was unique.
Pratt's. I used to love to go there and eat hot dogs, you know, because at that time I don't remember us fixing hot dogs at home like we do now, but we would go over there and eat hot dogs. And Mr. Pratt was real strict, you know, but I was always on my best behavior there because I knew what he would do. But Gentry, my husband, I met him here at the community center. Would be 64 years today had he lived, but he would go in Pratt's every night. You know, all the guys seemed to, that's the hangout.
When I started school in McAdenville, we were in the old schoolhouse. We played up under the schoolhouse. But then in second grade, we moved to the new school. Well, I can remember us dragging little things across, you know, from one school to the other.
I can remember every teacher I ever had.
Me too.
Yeah, because we used to have softball teams even back then and play on the ball field behind the old frame school.
Yeah.
You had the Albee Dogs, that's people who lived in Albee Town.
I remember the Albee Town.
Then you had the River Rats that lived on this side, you know.
I didn't know that.
That's the only two teams we had, and they played, I guess, each other every week.
Yeah.
The second schoolhouse, you remember the house that sat across?
Yeah.
It looked like an old barn.
Yeah.
That was actually the second schoolhouse. The first schoolhouse in McAdenville was right beside the Methodist church down here, right on that corner where the Prim house used to be.
Yeah.
That was the first one, because that's my daddy said he went to school there one year before they tore that down.
Well, what I remember, there's a little old schoolhouse. It looked like where that schoolhouse is now, but it was a frame.
Yeah.
And me and Billy, one of the Watts girls, were I guess they had I don't know when they graduated, and we were the mascots.
Just think when the community center was built.
Yeah.
Man,
I remember
that was the most wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Mr. Farr knew that we needed, that the children of McAdenville needed
Yeah.
a place.
Well, we moved to McAdenville when I was 5 years old. So, I remember, that it was just we just had the best time in the world. I mean, there were so many boys, there were a lot of boys, and of course I was just 5. I had a brother who was 3 years older, and they put up with me, but they played out here on this ball field all the time. Do y'all remember Gail West?
Yeah.
She was my best friend, and we used to play baby dolls, and we had all kinds of little houses, and we played baby dolls outside and then, all day long. We had our babies, and but then when the boys would let us play a little bit with them, that was very nice. But the boys were a lot. There were a lot of boys and not very many girls in McAdenville at that time. But we just had it was just every day was play day. Every day was a happy day. I don't ever remember anything bad or it was just, my daddy, he went all over town. It was right after the Depression, and it was hard times, and when we moved here, it was hard times for everybody. I mean, because it was after the Depression. And he would go and see everybody to be sure everybody had, what they needed. And we were all in it together. That's what made it so different from any other place. We were all together. We were one family. We always have been one family. I feel like you all are my family. And that's just the way I feel about McAdenville. It's just so close to my heart, and I just love all of y'all.
One of the things too that always stuck in my mind was Miss Farr, the role that she played.
Yes.
The thing that I remember is before the community center was built, the recreation we had was down at the library, and I remember her talking with Miss Elsie Deaton down there one day, and she said, well, my goal is to keep these kids out of trouble and occupy their time for the summer while they're out of school. And so she was very instrumental in the early days of the kids, and I'm sure she had a big influence on that building across the street.
I remember the day they opened.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking Ms. Howe, you went in and signed. I would wonder where that book is that everybody signed that day.
What was it like when the Reds won the World Championship?
Oh, that was a big deal. I mean, they were up north playing, and O.F. Gant from Belmont would go up there and phone a conversation, and they'd broadcast it over Belmont radio station. Man, they'd be a crowd of us over at the community center listening to that on the radio when they were up there playing, and that's like me and Steve's talking here a while back. The most amazing thing about it here at that time, I guess the population of McAdenville was 400 or 500. And can you imagine a team going from a little town like McAdenville, 400 or 500, going up there and playing a team from a city that's probably got 500,000 people in it? But I like I told Steve, I said, there's one difference. our team had Mr. Farr behind them. Oh, who they had. You talking about the community center, they was all kinds of activities. I know when Pop Ellington came here first, he was first director of the center, and he started boxing teams, Golden Gloves, had a lot of participation. And I remember being on a tumbling team, and we traveled and competed with other communities with that. And the teenage club, there's always a lot going on.
Everything's something every night.
Oh yeah, there was
Every
something
night.
going on all the time.
Busy place.
And the Far Yard Reds, talking about them, I literally had to plan my wedding around when the Reds were playing because I married Jim and Red was his dad.
Yeah.
And also I was down there watching ball games just hours before our first son was born, sitting on the cement bleachers. And I thought, I'm going to have this baby. And I did the next morning.
Do you remember when the Reds would be playing George Howe and Sue? There'd be a group of people up there, and there was a table that would take food, and we'd eat the whole. That was just a big crowd. Do you remember?
I know Mr. Farr and we'd get together and talk about the teams, and they both were big supporters of the softball league back then. But that started with a pumpkin ball.
Yeah, big old.
People, that thing was that
Yeah,
big.
it was big.
I think Pop Ellington, Charlie Fitz came here as assistant director, and he started the pumpkin ball league, and it was the churches and teams in the mill, and they would have games out there behind the center, and that thing was that big, and it wasn't so much the ball as it was the action that went with it, and everybody get excited about it. But that's where softball, slow pitch softball started from that.
Yeah. Do y'all remember the little boy drowned and Papa said that there was never going to be another drowning in McAdenville if he could help it? And that was when he built the swimming pool.
He saved a lot of young lives. He sure did.
Do y'all remember the White House, which is the personnel now or
Yeah.
was? I can remember when it was rooming house, boarding house or
Yeah.
something. But my brother had a paper route, and I would go with him some days, and we had to go, and there was a road that went from Space Dive to the back, and you had to come around this way till you got. But anyway, when we'd get to that house, it was always haunted. Everybody said it was haunted, and it looked, as a kid, the way it was, all that ladder stuff under the house. And when we'd get to that house, we would throw the paper and run. We were on our bikes. We would run till we got to the main road. But I don't know if any of you remember how it looked then.
I delivered, there's 5 families lived there at one time, because they had a back porch run out there.
They did.
Do y'all know where the legend of old Adam walking up and down the river with his lantern, where that came from?
I don't know how that came about, but I've heard that before.
Yeah. I worked third shift out there, and we'd had reels, and you had to have tie bands. And I remember sending one of my employees up to I-85 plant to get some coned really yarn. And I stood out back because some of that was still under construction, adding on to the space dive. And I stood out there, and all of a sudden here come Junior Costner. He come in reverse, and he was leaving the road in reverse. He got out and he was white. I said, "Junior, what's wrong?" He said, "That woman with a veil dress walked in front of me." Because the tale then was they're going to have a wedding there, and the groom did not show up. And the bride was so disappointed, she walked down the hill and walked into the river. That was one of the stories. And Junior swore it down and said, "That woman walking from us, I seen the dress and her veil." And he didn't turn around, he put it in reverse and come back.
When we was growing up, they always said that the house where the library is, the old library, you stand to the right of it, that brick house back there, they always said that on certain nights in October, you could see a lady standing in front of that window. And I know as a group of us boys, every year we would stand out there several nights and watch for that. And we saw it. She actually appeared in that window. And she was wearing, it wasn't a wedding dress, but it was a white dress. And she stood there in front of that window, and then she walked away.
You had grocery store on one side, Joe, Truett, and Lade ran that. And Ms. Abernathy run the dry goods on the other side, which sold shoestrings and cloth and things like that. And I'd go by and work there after I delivered the papers every day. Didn't have a bicycle, I had to walk. In 1957, they knocked the petition out and made a small supermarket. And that was McAdenville's first supermarket, where the True Line is now. I talked to some of the older people, and I remember Mr. Koo Watts saying, where Mockingbird Lane is now, said everybody had farms, everybody had gardens, and where we always call Pigtown, it is not, you're not putting anybody down, it was everybody out there had pigs, pig pens, and they just named that. Streets were not named back then, and they didn't name streets in McAdenville, Dick, what, about 1970 probably, somewhere in that neighborhood. So every little section had its name. Frog Level was, people lived up close to the old lake down there. And, but that's, he said everybody had a garden and everybody would share with each other. If you had a really abundance of tomatoes, you share with everybody around you, you know, or corn or whatever. And that's where you survived back then.
I think that the store started out, it was McCadden Young, because I've got the cards that they paid off with in the mail. I got my daddy's first paycheck, and they would pay off in the mail and take it to the McCadden Young store and cash them, and take them back, pay off next week. But I think after Mr. Young, I think Reagan was the building's name. I think he was the second one, and I believe, I don't know if it was somebody between him and Mr. Abernathy or not, but Mr. Labe Abernathy ran it for a long time, and then of course the three sons, Joe, Truett, and Labe, took over when he was unable to run it, and they ran it. They was running it when I was a boy. Mr. Labe was still there, but he had a real bad hearing problem, and so they sort of took over the business. But I think that's the progression of how it came into being.
My daddy came out of the First World War and started a barbershop down here, and ran it to I think 1957 when he had a stroke and he couldn't raise his arm, so he sold it to Don Rankin. And his brother ran a barbershop in North Belmont. Don worked for him over there, so Charlie let Don come over, just keep the barbershop open, you know. And I shined many a shoe down there on Saturday. Back then, you didn't have appointments.
You just walked in.
I remember that barbershop, he had, I don't know, 8 or 10 chairs in there. They would be full and they're standing up.
Wasn't there a shower in that place?
There's 2 shower stalls. Yeah.
People went in and took a bath.
Saturday was day to take a bath.
Yeah.
You know, and the shine boy, his extra job without pay, every shower in, you had to go in and take everything out and put fresh in. So, and you didn't get paid for that. That went along with the job.
85 came through, I believe, they started on it around 65. And I think it opened in 67. I believe I'm right on that.
Yeah.
I know they started moving all those homes up there, and Mr. Farr opened that property up over there towards the substation, and to allow people a place to move their houses to.
If somebody asked you who's never been to McAdenville, what is McAdenville like? What would you say?
A little piece of heaven.
Where else would you want to live?
Absolutely, this is it. This is.
I'll tell you a story about McAdenville.
I'm Ted Rankin. I'm one of the few, I guess, that never lived in McAdenville. And my dad didn't work for the company here in McAdenville, but we lived right outside McAdenville. And someone said this was better than Mayberry, and it was.
My name is Pam Tig Quick. My dad was Wayne Tig, who was the fire chief. He was also over the Christmas light crew for many, many years. As a matter of fact, I met my husband working on Christmas lights for Dad one year. And over 50 years later, we're still together. So I always enjoyed McAdenville at Christmas time because I would see all the hard work that went into the lights.
I'm Jerry Helton. I was born here, and I mean literally born here. That's when the doctor came to the house and delivered you. We sold cotton candy and candy apples and popcorn for the 4th of July for many, many, many years. Right across the street over there was Aviary Gardens. The greatest place you could ever want to take your kids to on Sunday and see wild animals, monkeys, birds, you name it, he had it. He took care of this town.
I was part of the teen club. I remember we had banquets, and Bill West would try to teach us to do the shag and the jitterbug and all the popular dances. We raised our 3 children here, and they got to share even some of the stuff that my boys played ball here. My son worked over here for a long time in the community center with Pam, and it was just not till I got older did I realize what a privilege we had to grow up in a town like this.
My grandfather, Will Rankin, was a barber in McAdenville. Steve's my uncle. My mother was his oldest sister. I was crowned the first junior Miss McAdenville. My grandmother had a brother who lived with her, Uncle Rube. And every day after school, he would walk up to Flossie and Lum Payne's little store that they had. And he would buy me a Fifth Avenue and a cheer wine. And that's good memories I had of getting home from school every day. But basically, McAdenville is home to me.
I'm Danny Botts. I was born and raised in McAdenville. I was Boy of the Year in 1963. Living in McAdenville, you can just keep on talking about it because it was such a good place to live.
My name is Bill Barnhill. I was, like several of others, I was actually born in McAdenville, raised in the house that I was born in. I remember Ty Donaldson, we always called him Sarge, Bill West, Red Jenkins. They kind of raised us over here. As I got a little older and started playing Little League Baseball, it's hard to talk about it. J.D. McDonald was my hero. He would come out and actually teach me, he was a great softball player. He would teach me, how to hit the ball, how to field the ball, how to throw the ball, everything. And when I got in high school, he continue to help me. And I succeeded in high school pretty good bit. It was just a great place to live. McAdenville was just a special place because of Mr. Farr.
I'm Calvin Hilton. I was born in McAdenville on Forest Heights. The McAdenville schools, I remember walking down when they was building a new one down through the middle of it. You could see the steel beams. The old white one was still at the backside, with old potbelly stove in the back of it.
Miss Hope Pogue Parks. My dad was Crawford Pogue, and they called Mother Snooky. And I had two brothers, Jim Pogue and John Pogue. John died in 2000, and my brother Jim is still going strong, wherever he is and whatever he's doing. I remember the sunrise services, Mother and Daddy would stay in bed, and I would get up, and I remember coming down here, and the Holy City, they would play the Holy City, and it would just make me weep to hear the people sing or the music that was played. I remember there was such an emphasis here on Jesus Christ, and my faith journey began here too.
And Mr. Farr, he was a down-to-earth person. You'd go up through the street sometimes at lunchtime, he'd be sitting on the porch with one of his workers chewing tobacco to him.
I'm Jean Bynum Hilton, and we were both born and raised in McAdenville. I was born actually in this two-story white house back here behind the community center, next to the ball field. So my grandpa got hired to help lay the foundation of McAdenville Wesleyan Church, which is the church that we've attended for over 55 years now. And then our daughter has been teaching school for about 27 years. Well, the last 17 of those years, she's been at McAdenville Elementary, and she loves it.
I'm Stanley Brown. As some have already alluded, I'm the son of the gentleman who is a pastor at First Baptist here for several years. We are all, and I think this is probably lost on the younger generations, we are all a product of the people we grew up with. I was blessed. Jimmy and Ted, Roger McWhirter, Danny Smith, we were always together. We're always there for each other and to each other. And, you know, as great as this town was, the people are what made this town. The families were instrumental in that, but all in all, it was a blessed place to grow up.
I'm Harold Brown. I'm the older brother, and he's right. It was family. If everybody here was family. I just remember I was thinking it was international, but it might have just been the total national tournament that was held here. I was of the age at that time that they asked me to help host one of the teams. In other words, basically I kind of met them and, you know, made sure they knew where the fields were and things like that, and it was just wonderful.
Hello, I'm Susie Rankin, now Sue Rankin White. Grew up here in McAdenville, and I grew up at a time when the polio epidemic hit hard in our area, in Gaston County and right here in McAdenville. There were 4 of us in our class that contracted the virus. But I guess the thing I remember about that most of all, which was really impactful to me, is that despite the fact that I had long leg braces and crutches, I was a part of everything that my class did. They included me in everything that we did, regardless of what the activity was. If it was kickball, if it was softball, if it was hopscotch, if it was square dancing, they found some way to involve me. I never felt left out. I never felt special. I was the first Girl of the Year, and so that was a big surprise and quite an honor to have been the first Girl of the Year of McAdenville.
In 1967, I was humbled and shocked to be crowned Miss McAdenville and the Girl of the Year in 1968. Even now, I can't believe it. I love our little town. I always call McAdenville, North Carolina, my home.
My name is Beverly, well, my maiden name is Lawrence, but it's Beverly Lawrence Burton now. I taught dance here. Bill West was the one, and I was 13 when I started my little dance school. Now, at my dance school, we always had our dance recital at the McAdenville Elementary School, so that was good memories.
I'm Reggie, middle name Roberts Wright, and I can't say anything about McAdenville without mentioning Mr. Bill Farr, because he provided such a wonderful community that developed for us to be raised in. And for me, scouting. We had two wonderful scout troops. We had Dan Talent in troop number 1, and we had Frank Pop Austin for years in troop number 2. If you come in from from Wilson Boulevard, you can come in Wright Road to the new development. That was named after my grandfather, Sam Houston Wright. If you go back in time, he had the first grocery store, or one of the first grocery stores. There was some before him in McAdenville. I think it was called the Shack. That was before Abernathy's.
I'm Joe Webco, but this was the place to be right here, you know. I mean, Christmas time, I remember when I was a young boy, they used to bring candy. I don't know what company they got it for, but the truck come in here, and they would unload penny candy in boxes. They were boxes, and they'd line them up down through here, and we'd take care of a couple at a time.
I'm Patricia Jones Lithgow, and I have lived in McAdenville all my life. I grew up, I went to school through the 8th grade in McAdenville, and I remember when we was in the 7th grade that I don't know if it was Miss Holbrook or whoever, we would have a 7th and 8th grade banquet, and they would get Mr. West, Bill West, to come over and teach us dancing because we'd be having our party or we over here at the community center, and they wanted us to be able to dance and everything, and it was we'd dress up, and it was just really nice. And I also remember Miss Frances Spencer was my Girl Scout leader.
My name is Phyllis Jones, and I enjoyed living in McAdenville. I think it's a beautiful place, and even this building has a lot of memories where we used to have our teenage club, and I loved the McAdenville School, and was taught piano by Doris Young. We had Abernathy Supermarket, and then we had Earl Pratt's drugstore, and everybody knew Daddy so well, Posey Jones. Till he had 6 kids, and if you didn't have any money, you just go there and say, put it on Daddy's tab. And so he had to tab both places, you know, with 6 kids. But I wouldn't want to call any other place home but this.
I'm Georgia Andrews Smith. We have all these memories mainly because of Mr. Farr. The pulling of the Yule log up the street, the putting the Yule log on the bonfire there on the ball field. They would never do that now, but it went on the ball field. We all were around singing Christmas carols, and when that was over, the kids would come in. We would walk through the line and see Santa Claus, and he gave us a bag of fruit and candy.
I'm Nelda Barnhill Malinowski, just like living in a wonderland, really. Mr. Farr was good to everybody, but I truly remember mostly the swimming pool and going there every day and swimming and practicing, and then the meets we would have, swim meets, and we would go over other places.
I'm Sarah Phillips Murphy, and I grew up here on Main Street. I was Girl of the Year in 1965, and I was in the swim team, the water show, lifeguard. Yeah, I was a lifeguard for 2 years.
I'm Don Ratchford. I came from another part of Gaston County, of Mill Villages, and there was nothing like this from where I came from. Again, in the 8th grade, I started taking swimming lessons, we've been talked about, and Harold Fike taught it, and by the end of that summer, Frances Spencer ran that pool, and she managed it, and she gave me jobs. I did everything from empty trash can to mop floors. I did whatever I needed to do to get him free, so I swam every day, all day long, every night I could stay. By the end of that summer, I was helping Harold teach swimming as a water safety instructor. I swim that much. And later on, I probably taught 150, 80 people to swim in my life.
I'm Dorinda Spencer Frederickson. When the swimming pool opened, my mother, he mentioned, I got the honor of cleaning the bathrooms. And I had to work, we had to work to go swimming for free. And I didn't mind doing it because I loved to swim. We all had tans. The thing that's so nice about McAdenville is that you could walk home at 11 o'clock at night and never worry about being unsafe. I walked right straight back up through there. There's two things that I did that was the right thing in my life. I married my husband, Skip. The second thing was to move back to McAdenville because I'm at home now.
Everybody in here, there's someone in their family that has influenced my life. Everybody in here. And I'm an educator for 40 years. And I have to say some of my favorite things in McAdenville, my elementary school. I still have my diploma from that. I can't find my high school diploma, but I still have the one from the elementary school. We had the honor of having one of the few libraries in the whole county. And I spent a lot of time in that library with Miss Elsie. My name is probably on half the books in there, because if I wasn't at the pool, which I was at the pool in the morning for swimming, in the afternoon to swim, and at night for the water show, the rest of the time I was in the library. And I just loved it.
I'm Baron Houston Wright. Growing up, we spent so much time in the Methodist Church. Our grandfather, he kind of took care of the church. He Sunday mornings, we were the first one there. When we were old enough, he would let me and Diane ring the bell. And you can't pull it too hard because the bell will flip over and it's going to fall on your head. I have the original charter from the Methodist men. I have a church pew at my house. I have a table that was in the narthex. But we spent so much time at the church. We had Reverend Weeks, and he was an inspiration to me because he had such vision problems. And he had, I think they had 3 little girls while they were here, and all the little girls had glasses that were this thick. He had to give a sermon reading it like this. He was just an inspiration, I think, to everybody.
I'm Jim Harris. My daddy was personnel manager here for many years. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about how he got his job here. And this story is way more about Mr. Farr than it was about Daddy. Somebody was stealing stuff out of the mill. So Mr. Farr wanted to figure out, who it was and stop it. And also, he called the Gaston County Rural Police and said, how about y'all sending somebody down here to go undercover, find out who this is. So just so happened that Daddy was a detective in the Gaston County Rural Police, so they sent him down here. And Mr. Farr didn't know Daddy or anything, it was totally random. So he came down after a few weeks, he found out who it was and arrested him, put him in jail. Well, Mr. Farr liked Daddy so much that he offered him the personnel manager job down here. Well, guess what? There was no personnel manager job. At that time, all the mills were doing their own hiring. So Mr. Farr wanted to bring all that up under one envelope, one person or one department to do the hiring. And also, Mr. Farr wanted to start developing insurance plans and pension plans and all the HR stuff that, modern companies. And you got to realize this was in 1960. Well, just so fortunate to be the recipients of Mr. Farr's generosity.
Hello, my name is Joe Brackett. McAdenville is, even trying to explain it to my wife, we make Mayberry look like Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
This was a family that there is no way in the world, and thank God for Mr. Farr and his family, and also Mr. Neil Farr. He was instrumental for me personally. When I was drafted, he was giving me financial advice, as a matter of fact, before I went into the military. I remember when Ty Donaldson ran us out of the pool room because we weren't 16 yet. Who else around the world could say that they were a very good pinochle player at 10 years old? I had the opportunity for the swimming team, the diving team, the water shows. We just had opportunities here that most folks can't even, couldn't even dream of. Everything that you could want was here. I just thank God for it, quite frankly, every day.
Well, I'm Donna McWhorter Black, and we moved to North Carolina, I think, I was in the 3rd grade, so I'm not sure what year that was. It molded me as a person. It molded me as far as being a parent for my kids, because we learned all the right things to do. I used to do the grocery shopping. So she would make a list out, and I would ride my bike down to Abernathy's. And then when I finished, they would put it on a tab. Then they would take my bike, put it in the back of the truck, load the groceries in the truck, take me and the bike home to Mama's, carry them in, and put them on her table. But I took art lessons with Ricky Fitz, if anybody remembers Ricky. He lived across from us, and we used to take the bus in front of my house to Gastonia to take art lessons. And I drew a country ham. A charcoal country ham, and I was so proud of it. I really was. I thought, oh my God, they were hanging it at Abernathy's. And it hung down there for years.
My name's Stan Walker. Somebody was talking about the swimming pool. I remember when they were building the swimming pool, and we were all trying to figure out what it was, and when they put the lines in it, we said, well, that's going to be a racetrack for each piece of and then we eventually figured out it was going to be a swimming pool. I lived 4 different places in McAdenville, and then I went to McAdenville school. I liked it so much I spent 9 years there. But and the 4th place I lived was right here in this recreation building.
I just love McAdenville. I remember Mr. Farr so well. Our teenage dances we had right here under that disco ball. We had lights and we had music. We learned how to dance and many kind of dances.
My name is Terry Poole, and I like Jerry. I was born in McAdenville. But when Roxanne called me, I said, now Roxanne, I wasn't born on the Mill Village. I was born out behind the schoolhouse. She said, well, that's still McAdenville. Don't worry about it. But anyway, I got a couple of things that I'm really grateful for. When I went to work in the mill, they had a program. They would give you a student loan for your kids to go to school.
Thank you so much. And thank everybody. I mean, you guys were wonderful. Just absolutely wonderful. And we just, and to future generations, y'all have just given them a gift, you know, to realize a town the way life used to be, you know, and how we can learn from that to give future generations. And I just want to thank you all. We want to start out today talking about sports. Let's start out with the sports first.
I got a good one to start
Okay.
with. I was the bat boy, and it was a big thing for me. These guys were champions, and they took care of me. So they were going to the Jones Beach, New York, and play in the World Series. And I asked my cousin Tim Faulkner, I said, you want to go? He said, how in the heck we going to go? I said, I got some pocket change. And we bought 2 plane tickets to Newark, New Jersey, or New York, and we got a cab, and they took us to the ball field. And J.D. McDonald and Johnny King and them picked us up and took care of us. And the one thing I remember, Eb Gant said, if they win this World Series, I'll jump off that high diving board. And you know, Eb wasn't no small fella, and he did it.
Since he started with Jones Beach, that's my greatest memory of McAdenville sports. Acres Motor Line was in the winner's bracket. We'd already been beaten. and I was playing for the Reds, and I was young. I was a high school senior, and they had the place was packed out here. There were several thousand fans. They were on the bank and everywhere. This was big. Whoever wins this is going to the World Tournament, you know. And I remember Akers brought down a big sheet, and on it they had painted, "Akers is Jones Beach bound." Well, we won the first game, we won the second game. And we went to Jones Beach. We closed them out. Boy, those Akers people were just brokenhearted. But thing I remember, John Hunsucker, Jim Ashworth, and all of the executives went on the plane with us. And that was the second time I'd ever been on a plane. And we flew into Jones Beach, and those guys, Ashworth and John Hunsucker and them, they got a box of sand shipped from an Akers Motorline terminal on Long Island to the Gastonia terminal with a note in it that said, "This is what Jones Beach looks like. You'll never see it."
Swimming team was our life in McAdenville. That was the one thing that, we went down. We'd go down at 10 o'clock. We'd swim till they closed, and then we'd go down to Pratt's and eat, and then we'd go back and swim. But every day, we were swimming and having practice, and we got to travel doing the swim team. But that was the best memory that I think that any child could have, is growing up with the people in McAdenville, because that's all that was on her. But we got to meet other kids too with other teams. So the swim team will always be in my memory.
When I wasn't on the hickory head board, I was setting up pins on the bowling alley. I know all y'all remember the bowling alley that was downstairs. It actually had a little pedal that you matched, and it stuck pins up to, and that's where you set the bowling pins up for the bowl. Of course, I was just a little fella. That and hanging the numbers on the scoreboard for the softball. They give us a hot dog and a drink if we kept score for the softball team. I never was much good at sports, but I did enjoy the sports here in McAdenville, because at the time softball was a real big deal.
I have a memory about being a bat boy, and because Mike McWhorter, he was the bat boy for the Nighthawks, and Andy was the bat boy for the Reds, so I wanted to be a bat boy. So I went down one time, the Bulldogs were playing. This was in the Industrial League out here. And I just asked them, could I be their bat boy? And they let me. So I remember it really, really good. They got me a little hat and a little, little something to put on my shirt. And it really meant a lot to me because I'd done it myself.
I just remember going to the pool, swimming all day, going to Pratt's, having lunch, coming back swimming, and then going home, taking a shower, and coming back for all the ball games.
The thing I remember about McAdenville, and I used to say, I wish my kids had a town to grow up in.
That's right. You're right.
Because we had everything.
We did.
We had basketball, swimming, you could shoot pool, bowl, ping pong. We had it right here.
Yeah. And we had the very finest. Mr. Farr gave us Brunswick Crown bowling alley. If they did it correctly. We had a trampoline brought in right over there. First one I'd ever seen. It was a Nissan. And I asked, and they said it cost $2,000. That was in the late 50s. But whatever was the best, that's what we had.
And you were safe. You didn't have to worry. Your parents didn't worry about where you were. They knew. And if you grew up in Campbell, you had multiple parents. Because I can assure you, if you did something you weren't supposed to, your parents knew about before you got home.
I grew up here in McAdenville at the best time with the best people. And like they said, we had everything at our fingertips. A lot of people don't know, but Farr had 3 teams. They had a blue team, a green team, and a Reds. I got to play with all 3. My dream was always to grow up and be a Farr Red.
Even when you were a kid and you didn't belong on a team, when we were on the sidelines down here on the foul line outside the fence, we'd crush Pepsi cups and make a ball, and we'd play pickle during the game.
We used to play a mini bike, Fox and Hounds, and you had that little Honda 70. You had that little Honda, and I had that red teardrop mini bike. Robbie Grissom had that Suzuki. we terrorized the town.
You know, one of the good things that we have enjoyed here is respect.
Yes.
And how it was taught, even in the small town that we lived in. I was just telling Rashford here that we would respect so many people. I didn't know until today how many of you wicked people swam in the pool after hours. I never did. I only went skinny dipping. We can talk about McAdenville, but there was a God reason why we were here. And isn't it interesting, after we grew up, that's when they got the policemen.
And if anybody needed anything, Mr. Farr would see to it they had anything they needed, anything.
He let us put a Kool-Aid stand at the gate when we was probably 4 or 5 years old.
Yep.
Nobody really bought no lemonade with for us or nothing, but we had a good time. Been there trying to give it to them.
How many of you in here remember Snuffy and his ice cream cart? Absolutely. He pushed that thing, from Lowell to Cramerton to McAdenville.
Before the mill started giving Christmas bonuses, they give all their employees a great big ham.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, Mom and Dad worked for Farr and had 3 brothers and sisters that worked for Farr, so we eat ham just about year round. So we had ham in this.
Well, what I'd like to say about Mr. and Mrs. Farr is they were very genuine people.
Yeah.
They were truly genuine people that showed this town what it meant to be honest people.
Yeah.
You know.
You talk about
They
Mr.
loved to
Farr,
live.
think about the fruit baskets
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
How
The
many
stockings.
how many kids worked in here giving out fruit baskets?
The stockings was as tall as we were.
Yeah.
And Mr. and Miss Farr would sit on top of the press box. She'd climb up on top of the press box with him during
Oh,
your
I
softball
remember that.
tournaments. You remember that?
My favorite memories growing up here in this wonderful McAdenville town is the 4th of July celebrations. We had the big barbecues and sock hops, and you could run and carry eggs, and just a big festival all day long, and it was just wonderful. Some of us got into a little bit of trouble, some of us didn't. But,
I wasn't with her at that time.
but this was just the best place at the best time to grow up.
One thing I remember about 4th of July, they always brought in entertainment, but McAdenville had its own built-in entertainment, and it was this young man's daddy over here, Joe McCorder. He always entertained us. And, one year they brought Jerry Clower in. Y'all remember when they brought Jerry Clower in? Joe, I think Joe taught him how to tell him Joe.
There's an undercurrent that you don't know about of integrity that some of you may know. What influenced me early on was my daddy was fortunate enough to be on a select group of men at that time, sorry lady, a group of men that Mr. Farr delegated to take money to needy people. And at Christmas, somebody would bring in, somebody would bring in a list, and he'd say, Don, take this to these people right here. And Daddy would go over there, and he'd deliver them $1,000. They didn't even know where it came from.
I think y'all all know Morrison's my brother, and he says, we had a good life. Well, let me tell you the fact. We lived in a 2-bedroom house. He and Dennis slept in a full-size bed. I had a little single bed in their bedroom. Yeah, think about it, that's how it was.
Y'all remember Abernathy Supermarket? Oh, yeah. And of course, the rite of passage was to be a bag boy at Abernathy's. Yeah, we rolled groceries around to everybody in town. We weren't allowed to take tips. It didn't matter if it was pouring down rain or whatnot. You didn't take a tip from anybody. We'd roll those groceries in those big carts across the street over here. The houses used to be down on where the pool is. That was kind of a cool thing to be a bag boy at Abernathy Supermarket.
But I think one story that all of us have about this community is that anything we ever learned about God, reverence, all of our patriotic thoughts. Mr. Farr built all the patriotism into us with the 4th of July celebration. But, you know, most of us got baptized in this town, and most of us, you know, brought those in our marriages, taught it to our kids, and that's the best thing I got out of this community. What a town we grew up in. You know, I learned how to pray. I learned how to fight.
We lived right across the street from the school, so it was just, you know, a privilege for us to be able to walk across. But yeah, everybody walked from school, and it was just an honor, I guess, now that you think about it, that we had our own, McAdenville had our own little school in our community that we went to.
Do y'all remember the aviary?
Oh, yeah. I remember when I was really young, my Uncle George took me up there to the aviaries, and of course I lived on it, you know, that's where I raised, right there with the fence in the backyard. And my Uncle George took me up there, I guess I was probably 7 or 8, and they hadn't had this kangaroo up there too long. But I was playing around with that thing, my Uncle George sitting over on the bench, and that kangaroo jumped on me and it started pouncing, and he was rolling around over there laughing, and I was begging and hollering, get him off, get him off. And I was almost in tears, and he was too over there laughing.
You know, I look around at this crowd and I feel like everybody else. This was an absolute privilege to grow up in McAdenville at this time.
Say something about Mr. Steve Rankin. You know, we've all had our pictures made, but Steve, he could make you ugly, I'm telling you.
One of my best memories is, this is mainly for the women. Miss Starson, back in the 60s, was our Girl Scout leader. Yeah, for at least 8 or 9 years. And she would provide us weekends at a little Girl Scout retreat up in Lowell. We would go and spend the night and, you know, do the whole fire thing and everything else. But we met once a month, and she would provide the cost for our badges. And I mean, all of us, our sashes were full of badges because we went on all these little retreats and did a lot of things. And we actually met back here in the back room once a month for our Girl Scout meetings. So
I
that,
remember going with her.
yeah.
I was little.
It was fabulous.
You know, I've kind of fell in love with McAdenville again recently. My grandchildren know that, because I talk about it all the time. But I've been wondering why am I feeling this way? And today, I see why I feel that way, but why I love this little community and all the great things that people do for one another.
My thing is, the teenage club, the swimming, the beauty contest I did not win, but enjoyed being in it, and the water shows and the ball games, and we could go on for hours and hours and hours and talk about this, but Daryl and I live in the village now. We live next to the lake, and we're probably the only couple in the village that are McAdenville bred, born and bred. And, you know, Daryl especially is all the time, you can chime in anytime because I know you can talk. Tell stories about McAdenville to the new people that come in town. You know, how we grew up here, and they're all so interested, but they'll never get to experience what we experienced growing up here with the Fars and the Carstarthens and wonderful old friends and everybody loved one another.
When I was in the fire department, you know, back then we used to direct the traffic. So you got to see, if you're standing out there in the middle of the road or on the side up here where the carolers were at, keep people from stopping so much, keep traffic moving. You got to see a lot of people and meet a lot of people from other places. That was a lot, I always thought that was a lot of fun. And even too, you know, I worked for the company, you had to decorate the town. At that time, you know, you come home from school, and that's what you do, go put up Christmas lights. All that was good too.
You worked with Wayne too?
Uh-huh, sure did.
How many people remember Santa Claus coming by helicopter and landing out here in the ball field?
tickled to death to have been brought up in McAdenville. We had a tremendous example set for us. If, you know, for whom much is given is much required. Mr. Farr got that.
And that was a gate. I became the youth programs in this area. Yeah. I remember Tony would actually come up the road and actually look for young guys and people and everything and put them in his car. We'd probably pack in 20 people and he'd bring them down and he'd start playing ball.
The caliber of coaches, the caliber of people that Mr. Farr made sure was in this town, down to the supermarket, to the mills, the caliber of men and women that I got exposed to as a child was, I look back now, was unbelievable.
It was a great place. A lot of good memories.
Does any of the other girls remember being father-daughter bowling?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my best memories with my dad. And I mean, oh gosh, I don't even remember how young I must have been. Tiny.
How about ceramics?
He was really, ahead of his time, but he really took care of the community. And he was a good example of that. And I remember that to this day. So many times now, I don't know that we had people in relationship with the police and everything like that, was then. So, it was a true community. And I think, like you said, with all the sports going on, with people like that watching out for everybody, it was more like it's like a whole town was a family. Like you said, everybody knew each other, everybody. The reason so many people's here today, right?
And at the ball tournaments, how many of you slid down the hill on this? I mean, and I always want to be Pam in swimming.
And soccer.
Really. And basketball. I mean,
Yeah, but she had the most beautiful butterfly, her and William Howe. That was
the great thing about the store, and Joe Abernathy put me to work when I was about 12 years old, and I shouldn't have been working. Paid out of the pocket, but every Saturday morning, if some of you remember this, usually every Saturday morning there'd be a handful of gentlemen who would gather. Rufus Rankin, Sam Jenkins, and Johnny might have to help me on a few others.
George Bynum.
And I'm 12, 13 years old, and what you have is a group of men who eventually the conversation rolls to being in the war. And I didn't realize what such a rich piece of history was right there in front of me. They're talking about, and these were some men that saw some pretty rough times in the war.
The store was a big part of my life. I got my first job there, I guess, when I was 15 or 16. And talking about charging, Abernathy's, if you wanted to charge your groceries, that was fine. And what they did was when they would put up they would open up a carton of cigarettes, put the packs in, because 25 cents a pack back then, the carton was $2, and then they would take that cardboard on the inside of the carton, which was just blank white paper, fold it in half, stick it in the top of the cash register, and when somebody would come by and buy their groceries, they'd say, charge it, you just write down their name and the amount. That's how trusted they were, and he was, it was just a great small town.
But back to what you were saying, this is why we're doing what we're doing. I sat there for most of my childhood, she was our nanny, listened to stories from Nanny, and would give anything today if I had written it down, recorded, or done anything. My dad and I talk about it all the time, and that's why when this project started coming up, why it was so important to talk about people like George Bynum and Hallie and the Farrs and JD and anybody else, Tony Payne, everybody else, because it is so, so important that we remember that, because I remember some of the stories that Hallie told us, but I don't remember them all. Because she was her house was the first house in Albanytown. And she had all kinds of stories about the balls they used to have down at what's the personnel office now, when it was actually, a house that people lived in. She had amazing stories to tell. And she babysat a lot of us. She babysat us and the Bates boys, and Ashworth boys, Julie, Michelle. Yeah, she babysat a lot of people in town. So she was a rich history, and it's gone.
Well, she would talk about when she was a young girl how gypsies would come through town, and they would camp out in the backyard. They loved to camp there for sometimes a week. Record, and not trying to get back to the sports topic, but Big D was the only person who hit a softball up to the personnel on it.
And Mr. Farr would throw the ball out.
I remember, I couldn't have been 15, working here, when they were building the gym. Every evening, he would walk across, come over and talk to me, look at the gym. And you just don't find people like that.
Here nor there, it's nothing, no big deal to say, but because we were such a family, because we knew our community, at nighttime, you could leave your windows up, not think a thing about it.
Just
Your doors
blast your
open.
little screen door. Our doors stayed open until 1986.
Our keys that were in the car?
Yeah.
I'm fourth generation McAdenville. My kids were fifth generation. And believe it or not, it was both sides of my mom and my dad. They go back 4 generations. And that tells you how long we've been here, you know, and we've been around. And I'm sure everybody's got kind of that kind of.
Abernathy Supermarket where Grandpa bought eggs in 1928. I didn't know if they back that far.
Yeah.
Wow. And when you come from Lowell, Grandpa, Daddy was born, second house on the right, 1929, and B64 right across the street. So we've been here a long time too.
My great-grandpa, Papa Letko, he turned on the hydroelectric plant.
Right.
And I think he was like 96 when he did that. He was pretty old. You know, but the reason he did it because he was here when Edison did the generator.
Yeah, that's Albany Town area up there, and that was, you know, until I was 8, that's where we lived. And so that was my whole life, was just that little area right there in Albany Town. And of course, the football field there that in Mr. Farr's front yard, that was a huge football field for everybody. We would play pickup football there, and she would be one of the first ones picked. Because she was fast and tough as any of us.
I remember one time, I caught the ball and I was running toward the finish line, you know, and I was almost there and I saw this little red head coming to my side. It was Gaston Bates. And he did a roll block. Every time. I could never get by it.
I thought you were going to say Joe Mooney.
But I just wanted to, on the sports aspect, just to mention Doug McDonald's name. I mean, he was the coach of the Dolphins, and just, I mean, what a great man he was.
One of my fondest memories is the Christmas lights and being a kid and just take off by ourselves and just walk up and down Boxtown and around Christmas Town and see people that we knew and see how far the traffic was backed up. That was the big thing for us, not to see the lights, but to interact with friends.
There was one guy who really put all the lights up every year, and he was head of the fire department, and that was Wayne T. He did an absolutely fantastic job.
When he had a passion about something that was just focused, laser focused. I asked him one night, I finally just said, Dad, why do you do this? Why, I mean, what's the big pressure? What if a couple of trees aren't on night one? And he said, son, I'm getting paid to do something. I've made an agreement. I'm going to honor it. I said, but why do you do this every year? And he's like, and of all times, a kid was riding by in a car, leans out, smiling like crazy, waving at us, Merry Christmas. And he just looked at me and grinned one of the few times he would do that and said, that's why I'm right there. I was like, I get it. And as far as the fire department, we all know I grew up in the fire department. Some of you actually were members or had parents that were members. Another passion of Dad's, he saw the need years ago. The town needed a fire department. And one of the things that I never appreciated enough was how much it meant to me growing up in that firehouse. That was Dad's baby, besides his family. It was his love all the way to his death. I mean, he just put a lot of heart and soul into that place. And I grew up in it.
I was going to say, our dad, he was a carpenter for McAdenville, and Miss Farr loved our dad. As a matter of fact, if they didn't send him up there to do what needed to be done, they'll say,
you go back and you send Earl up here. And so she always thought a lot of our dad, which I didn't know until we were cleaning out our parents' things, that she thought so much of our dad that she gave Dad like a 16 by 20 oil painting of herself. So I thought that was pretty neat.
I got a piece of the old bowling alley in Mama's basement. He made me a workbench out of when I was a little kid.
Wow. Well, speaking about Mr. Farr, when he got sick, her mother was a nurse, and we were over there. What was Mom? She gave him
was
a
employee
shot.
nurse, yeah, but she gave him
Anyway, we were
shots.
sitting there that day. I got to go with her, and we went in. There was a knock at the door, and somebody needed a bill paid. Right out of his own pocket, So that was really sweet.
She and I had gotten into a conversation about skincare products. And I guess a couple weeks after that, she sent her driver up, and I noticed, I'm sitting there working at my desk, and I noticed that he pulled into the parking lot. I was like, well, I wonder why he's here. And he brought me a basket of some of her favorite things, some Perlier things. And just brought me this little basket full of things because we were discussing those things, and she sent him up there with a basket for me. I always thought that was very sweet.
They were both very thoughtful.
How many would go to like the penny store when we would go to school, walk through the woods to Helton's, Lucy's? Yeah, get the little penny candy before we went to school.
Grasshoppers.
Yeah.
Grasshoppers were pennies.
Yeah.
If you got sick at school, or if you needed to go home for a reason, Mr. Earl would load you up in his Volkswagen bug and take you home and have the school secretary call ahead and let them know that you're coming.
I also have a memory of someone being really sick. Who was it that was really sick?
You're talking about Daniel Rankin's youngest sister.
But what I do remember about that is how positive the community response and how loving and generous as a community we were.
My memory about Tanya, don't ask me why, but I remember Preacher Miller would take her to her treatments because he had that big car and the seat would lay all the way back.
She used to leave home and come through the woods to our house, and nobody knew where she was. So she was coming to see my brother that was killed.
Mm-hmm.
They had some sort of connection. I mean, she'd sneak over there to see him, and we'd take her back to Rachel.
This has been really nice, and I want to thank Roxanne and Catherine for pulling all this together. And it's just such a special event, and there's some folks here that I haven't seen, like Sonny Prince over there, probably 40 years. I haven't seen a lot of people, and it's so nice to sit here and listen to you all talk about how special McAdenville is to each and every one of us. And I'm sure that he is smiling down at this event today, and so pleased to see us all here together. And another thing that just kind of dawned on me, when you don't see somebody for 40 years, how things change and how people change and the town changes. And a minute ago, we were talking about the Christmas lights and how special they are. You know, the one gift that the Christmas lights brings to all of us each and every year is that they are exactly the same as they were the year before. And you can walk right down Main Street here and walk by the community center and the Christmas trees, and you still hear the same music coming out of the Baptist church bells, and it's like going back in time. And I hope that everybody will continue to come back to McAdenville every Christmas, and as long as it's humanly possible, we're going to continue to do the Christmas lights in McAdenville.
And one thing I do want to mention, it seems like every time we've been listening to some of these wonderful stories from all the people, one common denominator, it seems like, is what you did as a child.
This has meant so much to me. It really has, and to see people I haven't seen in so long. God bless you all, and thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was associated with McAdenville from the time I guess I was a baby. We went to church here, not in this building, in the old building. And my dad was actually on the building committee to build this one. And I was telling Roxanne that I was on the swim team in 1956 because I have a picture of me standing in the pool down there when I was 11, 12 years old.
That's wonderful.
But yeah, I went to church here. I was in the Scouts. I think the Methodist Church had the Scouts. The Baptist Church had the MYF, I believe it was. And yeah, we lived right up there. Well, 85 wasn't there. You know, I rode my bicycle down here. And of course, my grandmother lived up there, which would be in the southbound lane of 85, and my uncle lived in the probably the northbound lane. And I'm glad we moved back.
Yeah.
We've enjoyed being there. I like being here.
What brought you to McAdenville? What brought you all here?
I grew up in Gastonia. My grandparents lived in Mount Holly, so I traveled through McAdenville on the way to my grandparents' house a lot. Kristen and I met. I was living in Belmont, and she was living in Cramerton. And so we know we wanted to stay in this area, so McAdenville was kind of a natural choice.
I was particularly interested in sort of a neo-traditional style neighborhood with front porches and sidewalks. And of course, I was already intrigued with McAdenville and being in such a small town with a lot of charm. I like Christmas.
I just love Christmas town.
Yeah, we just wanted a small town feel, the fact that you could walk to elementary school. I mean, you can't find that just anywhere.
We were just driving around looking at houses and ended up deciding to move here, and we really love it here. We love the small town feel.
I grew up in a small town, and so it just felt right.
It was nice to have that hometown kind of thing. Everybody's nice and friendly, and so you go to the Yule log, and it's almost like the whole town's there.
It's totally like a Hallmark Christmas movie. And everybody gets real excited, and the whole town comes together. I mean, I feel like we live that every year. We get to experience that. And we like it all.
I think it gave traditions for the kids at the school to participate in those programs, and that kind of felt special.
We were initially introduced to the traditions because of our daughter being a part of the elementary school. The school's really active with the Yule log and with the tree lighting ceremony.
And I think one of my favorite parts of the traditions that are here, they're still very much like they were when they were first established. And I think that makes it really special and keeps that charm.
I felt like from the very beginning it would be a really neat place for our kids to grow up because of all the traditions.
I knew I wanted to be in McAdenville, but at that time, because it was just me and my son, we had rented one of the old duplexes that had just been recently remodeled. And they were awesome. It was perfect for a mom and a son.
We have a great tradition on the last day of the Christmas lights, and we have a lights out party. And I don't think I got to go to it last year, but we go to Laura Lewis's house, and she has the best view in town almost. So we hang out in her back and celebrate the lights, and it's like all the lights go out and then we scream. So it's fun.
Halloween's gotten to be kind of a big.
That's true. Halloween is crazy.
Yeah, it's a sight to behold. And
don't
everyone
even- yeah.
decorates just as much on Halloween now
it's kind
as
of
they
become
did for Christmas.
What do we call it? The period between Halloween and Thanksgiving. But nobody really knows what to do because we have to have Christmas up so early. So you have Halloween, and then do you go straight to Christmas decorations?
Yes.
Or
You do.
it's kind of like this odd time when you see a little bit of everything in the neighborhood.
Well, I think for us, one of our routines is to walk on the trail.
Yeah, so there was a spot on the thread trail between what we call the boathouse now. And I guess, well, what is like a little creek that you had to like jump over or walk through.
We've been wanting a bridge out there for years.
We contributed to that, and it's a really nice bridge. And right after it was completed, our president at the time lost her daughter in a car accident. So we named the bridge in her honor, and we made a plaque, and there's plaques out there with the Women's Club logo, so everybody can cross the Kilby Elkins Memorial Bridge. We have a lot of respect for the history and the legacy and the traditions, and being part of the McAdenville Women's Club is critical for those who help with some of the Yule log and the tree lighting and the 5K and any of the traditions, because we kind of understand what that legacy is. We appreciate it, and we want to keep it, and we love the Christmas light, and it's a really cool position that we're in to be able to learn from those who grew up here and keep those traditions the way they are and respect those, but continue in our new traditions as well. Yeah, the egg hunt's an awesome tradition because you get to go and you get to see the backyard, and it's gorgeous back there, and it's huge, and it's kind of like a little oasis in McAdenville you didn't even know existed, and it's opened to our children to hunt eggs. And when your kids age out of it, then they become volunteers and get a chance to dress up as the bunny. And it is a pretty cool tradition. I think even though mine are starting to age out of it, they still would not miss it for the world.
Much as McAdenville's changing, in December still looks like a Norman Rockwell painting when you walk out of your front door. So
I don't know anybody here that didn't get it. Is McAdenville Elementary is like a gym like no other. It is the oldest building in Gaston County schools. It was a school before Gaston County was a school system. I thought it was really cool at the 50-year Gaston County birthday when they were all excited. I'm like, our building is older than this. And to be able to walk your kids to school and walk them home from school. We're the McAdenville Wildcats, and the Christmas Town 5K also being on the PTO at the time. We wanted Wes, the Wildcat, to represent McAdenville Elementary in our 5K because we thought that was a great way to pull the school in to an event that the school benefited a lot from. So Wes was born for
China.
He is from China. He came in a box, but he is a big part of that.
Well, the first one was 2013. It was in 2012. Julie and I pitched the idea to Bill and Carol, and I was just remember being very excited about the willingness to try it, and then we didn't know what the heck we were doing. Of course, we had some help from the Y, but that was just such an incredible, stressful experience. We were very happy to just walk away and just let somebody else take care of it after that, and you guys have done a fantastic job ever since.
are.
Unforgettable, though near or far.
Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you just clings to me. Never before has someone been born.
Unforgettable in every way.
And forevermore. That's how you'll stay.
That's how you'll stay.
That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable
In every way.
In every way.
And forevermore.
And forevermore.
That's how you'll stay.
That's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable. That's what you are.
Unforgettable, though near or far.
Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you just clings to me. Never before has someone been born.
Unforgettable in every way.
And forevermore.
And forevermore.
That's how you'll stay.
That's how you'll stay.
That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. more.
That's how you'll stay.
That's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too.
What will I do when you're gone? Who's gonna tell me the truth? Who's gonna finish the stories I start the way you always do? When somebody knocks at the door, someone new walks in, I will smile and shake their hands, but you can't make old friends. You can't make old friends. Can't make old friends. It was me and you since way back when, but you can't make old friends.
How will I sing when you're gone? 'Cause it won't sound the same. We'll join in on those harmony parts when I call your name.
You can't make old friends. Can't make old friends.
It was you and me since way back when.
But you can't
make old friends.
When St. Peter opens the gate
And you come walking in,
I'll be there just waiting for you.
'Cause you can't make old friends.
'Cause you can't make old friends.
No. And when I'm out on the stage all alone, and I hear the music begin,
We all know the show must go on, but you can't make old friends.
no, no,
You can't make old friends. Can't make old friends. And you and me will be young again.
you
Can't make old friends.
You and me,
We'll be together again.
'cause we both know